Hi there, Tanya Harris here again with healthyhomehappyfamily.com. And if you have been watching, this week I decided is going to be Sunscreen Safety Week because for all you lucky ducks that are going away for spring break, I figure you probably got some sunscreen on your mind. So I just wanted to share with you some pieces from my online program that I've been developing. And I just wanted you to be aware of what's in some of the sunscreens and why maybe we should choose safer brands. So there's ingredients in regular sunscreens that can lead to endocrine disruption, which is hormone disruption. And if you've heard me talk before, endocrine disruption is super serious because the endocrine system regulates every single function of the body. So you definitely don't want to be putting something in your body that's going to disrupt your hormones, or especially your children's. And as you're going to see in one of these next episodes, you really want to be careful about what kind of sunscreen you put on your child because they can't detoxify like adults can. So that means that the sunscreens can do a little bit more damage to them while their organs are developing, and they're also not able to get those chemicals flushed out as quickly as adults can. So what I want to do is go through a little bit every night, or it's night for me, a little bit every day, and tell you a little bit more about sunscreen. And then at the end of this, you'll have safer sunscreen brands to buy. I'm not just going to leave you hanging, and what ingredients to avoid and why. So yesterday I talked about why sunscreens might not protect as well as we think they do. And I'm not telling you to not use sunscreen. That's definitely not it. What I want you to do is think about safer brands to buy because there's definitely some that are best to avoid. So yesterday I spoke about that and why you want safer sun. So when you put some sunscreen on, they found that actually you can stop your body's production of vitamin D by up to 99%. And if you're familiar why you need vitamin D, there's so many reasons. It can be linked to cancer, autoimmune disorders, multiple sclerosis, so many different things. So you definitely want to keep up your levels of vitamin D. And in yesterday's video, I also talked about why you need it from the sun rather than other sources. So if you get a chance, go back and watch that. So tonight I'm going to we're going to bust some sunscreen myths. So I've got 5 here. And you'll learn by the end of this how to use sunscreen a little bit more safely and also why you don't need an SPF over SPF 50. So with that, let's jump right in. The first reason is because they offer only marginally better protection. And people often wrongly assume that they get twice the protection from an SPF as they do from an SPF 50. But that's not true. That's not how it works. And you'll learn about that in just a minute. But what they found is that the SPF 30 can work as well as a 50 even. You really don't need an SPF 100. There's only a small amount of protection difference between the two. Number 2 is the false sense of security a lot of people get with high SPF sunscreens. And people tend to stay out in the sun longer because of that false sense of security. So they did some studies in Europe, and what they found were vacationers were staying out in the sun longer when they gave them an SPF 30 over an SPF 10. So the researchers also thought that means the same would be true for higher SPFs, which I believe it would be too. I would probably stay out longer with an SPF 50 than I would with an SPF 30. But again, that's not how that works. So that gives you that false sense of security that you can stay out longer, which is not true. All sunscreens need to be applied after a couple hours or after swimming. It doesn't mean you get to stay out longer. Number 3, high SPF products may not truly be highly SPF after all. So I thought this was super interesting, and I'm actually going to read here because this is a lot of little information. But when Procter & Gamble tested a competitor's SPF 100 product at 5 different labs, the results varied between SPF 37 and SPF 75 for that same SPF 100 product that they tested. So basically what that means is they took this SPF 100, went to 5 different labs, and it came back between SPF 30 and SPF 75, not even at SPF 100. So when Procter & Gamble did these tests, they said because of the way the SPF values were calculated, the errors would be most significant in higher SPFs, and that the recommendations for SPF should stay around 50%. They found that just a small difference in testing conditions could make a dramatic increase on that SPF. So they recommend SPFs be capped at 50. The next one, number 4, is high SPF products need higher concentrations of sun filtering chemicals than lower SPF sunscreens. So when you have that higher SPF, you're also going to have higher concentrations of a lot of the sun filtering chemicals. And we're going to learn about that tomorrow, which active ingredients to avoid, because there are some really surprising, crazy, nasty ones, I think. And some of these can pose health risks, and I spoke about it a little earlier, but they can lead to tissue damage, hormone disruption, allergic reactions, some with cancers, so many different things. So you're going to have higher concentrations of that if you use some of these sunscreens with the higher SPF than you would with a lower one. Number 5, I thought was really surprising too, is that sunbathers typically don't use enough sunscreen anyway. So they've done several studies and they've confirmed that most sunscreen users use just 1/4 to 1/2 of the sunscreen amount recommended by the manufacturer. So that was a little surprising too. And at the end of the week, I'll tell you how much you should use, because I thought it was a lot. But we'll get into that when we go into the safer brands to buy and how to use sunscreen safely. So that is number 5, is that sunbathers typically don't use enough anyway. So that means you're just putting those chemicals on the skin and you're not getting the protection, but you are getting some of those toxic ingredients. So I know I went through those pretty quickly. So to recap, people often wrongly assume that they get twice the protection from an SPF 100 as they would from an SPF 50. People tend to stay out in the sun longer because of that false sense of security with the higher SPF. High SPF products may not truly be high SPF after all. Remember, that's the one where they took the SPF 100 at the 5 different labs, and they found out that it was testing between SPF 37 and 75, and there's different testing conditions in all those labs that can make a difference. So they recommend that it be capped at SPF 50. And let's see, high SPF products need higher concentration of sun filtering chemicals than the lower SPF sunscreens. And sunbathers don't use enough anyway, so they're not even getting the protection they need. So that's it for tonight. I actually wanted to keep this one short. I want to give these tips to you in short chunks so that by the end of the week you have a lot of information that I broke down and hopefully made it easier, because I know some of my videos can tend to be long. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below and I'll get to those and I'll hop in there and answer those as soon as I can. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks.